they reorganize in the south, we're going to go get them. If they go to ground, we will, as the president said, root them out.
In the midst of all the chaos, intelligence sources tell ABC News that Osama bin Laden and his inner circle are on the move, having left the mountain caves where they were believed to be hiding.
As they are moving away from places they've previously been located, they're visible.
Or so the U.S. hopes. Officials say extra AC-130 gunships were brought into the area for their ability to monitor the roads and to react quickly.
The U.S. has also put more special operations troops into southern Afghanistan. They are not working with opposition groups, officials say, but they are devoting their efforts entirely to the hunt for bin Laden. Peter?
Thank you, John. John McCarthy at the Pentagon. Now let's go to the White House. President Bush had a meeting today, the first of several this week, with the Russian President Vladimir Putin, and afterwards they talked to reporters about Afghanistan. ABC's Terry Moran was there. Terry, as good as today was, they're also a bit anxious.
They are a bit, Peter, because with events unfolding so rapidly in Afghanistan, the question of what comes next there has become paramount for President Bush. The Northern Alliance has pledged to the president that their move into the capital is temporary.
They intend not to occupy Kabul, which is fine. That's the way it ought to be. And we will continue to work with their commanders. We've got troops there with their commanders, and we will continue to urge restraint.
At a joint press conference with the Russian president, Mr. Putin said the Northern Alliance forces had no choice but to enter the city.
There was complete lawlessness in that city, and the situation must be put under control.
In the scramble now to create a post-Taliban government, Mr. Bush said the Northern Alliance should not assume that they have an advantage.
There is no preferential place at the bargaining table. All people will be treated the same.
At the UN today, an effort to form a post-Taliban government. Diplomats were planning a grand council of Afghan tribal leaders from all parts of the country, with the exiled king presiding. But the man in charge of the UN effort said a new government is an urgent matter.
Time is now of the essence, and it is indispensable and urgent that the efforts of the various Afghan groups be brought together.
Until that occurs, the UN is considering a multinational force from Muslim countries. But U.S. officials admitted that American and British troops may have to move in first. Afghanistan dominated this meeting, which once would have been called a summit, but there were other more familiar issues discussed. Most notably, Peter, President Bush announced an astonishing 2/3 reduction in the U.S. offensive nuclear arsenal, and President Putin said Russia would respond in kind.
Thanks, Terry. A subject we'll return to later in the week. Finally, on the subject of Afghanistan for today, a quick conversation with the Pakistani journalist who knows the Taliban and the region so well. We've talked to Ahmed Rashid many times. We made the latest call just a few hours ago. Ahmed, so what has happened to the Taliban? A strategic retreat or what?
What we know is that hundreds of Taliban have thrown down their weapons and have come up to the Pakistan border and are trying to get in as refugees. Hundreds more have gone back to their villages, not wanting to fight anymore. But there's still a strong, hard core which is rallying around Mullah Omar and the Arab leadership under bin Laden, who are going to fight. They've taken to the mountains.
And do they have the potential to mount an effective guerrilla war, do you think?
They're going to be like fish out of water, because more and more commanders now are going in trying to rally their tribes and their clans against the Taliban.
Is this war on the verge of being over, or is it a phase that is over?
I think a phase is over. I think what we are going to see now for several weeks and possibly months is a great ferment and military action in the south of the country. What hopefully we're going to see in the north of the country now is humanitarian relief, aid workers coming in, feeding the Afghan population, and the start of a process to set up a new Afghan government.
Today in Afghanistan, and a momentous day. When we come back, we'll turn to the American Airlines crash, one found in the wreckage of American Airlines Flight 587, and that includes 2 people who were on the ground. 5 more are still missing. Investigators have now found both of the black boxes, and here is ABC's Lisa Snark on the investigation the day afterwards. Lisa?
Well, Peter, the National Transportation Safety Board has done most of the analysis on the cockpit voice recorder, which was found first. Sources say there is no sound of an explosion on that recorder, and investigators say the evidence still points toward an accident, not a terrorist attack. New York police were on Jamaica Bay near Kennedy Airport today searching for more wreckage. They found the plane's rudder in the water. And investigators released new information about what was on the cockpit voice recorder. The first hint of a problem came less than 2 minutes after takeoff.
At 107 seconds after the start of the takeoff roll, an airframe rattling noise was heard.
Something was causing the plane to shake. 7 seconds later, the captain says he believes they are flying through the wake turbulence of a jet up ahead. 7 seconds after that, the Airbus A300 shakes again. The co-pilot, who is flying the plane, calls for maximum engine power, but that does not help.
There are several comments suggesting loss of control of the aircraft at 127 seconds after the takeoff roll initiation.
17 seconds later, the plane crashes. From the first hint of a problem to the end, a total of 37 seconds.
The central question is what caused the vertical stabilizer to fail? And perhaps wake turbulence played a role.
Aviation experts are trying to figure out how the plane came apart, which pieces came off first. They are puzzled that a section of the tail snapped off cleanly and fell into the bay. Clues may come from the flight data recorder, which was found today with the main wreckage. It is a big break for investigators. The recorder may contain valuable information about the plane's engines, as well as its mechanical and navigational systems. And they will look very closely at the GE engines. Engines like these have had problems in the past. Now, the plane that took off ahead of the American Airlines flight was a 747. Investigators are still trying to determine if it was close enough to cause the kind of severe turbulence it would take to break apart American Airlines Flight 587. Peter?
Thanks, Lisa. Lisa Stark at the
Plan
scene.
to interview men ages 18 to 33 who entered the U.S. since January 2000 from countries where Osama bin Laden is known to have operatives.
Justice has a new mission, a new